Hello, everyone. It's Wednesday. It's the Happy Healthcare Professionals live show. And I hope you guys are well this evening. Today's show, I'm really, really excited about it because it's our introduction to the International Women's Day session that myself and my co-guests are going to be hosting next week. And I cannot wait. It's so exciting. If you are joining us live, do say hi in the comments. Do drop us questions as well. Today's show, I really want to just really share our stories about us as women, BAME women pharmacists in our positions, and also open up the conversation to allow you listening to be able to learn from us, inspire from our stories, and also to introduce our session that we're going to be running next week, which we are very, very excited about. So for those of you guys who don't know who I am, let me introduce myself. My name is Komal. I'm a former national level pharmacist turned pharmacy career change coach. And I'm really, really passionate about helping pharmacists and pharmacy colleagues to reinvent their careers, to do work that they feel really fulfilled by, that provides them with freedom and flexibility. And some of you may also know that I am really passionate also about BAME women pharmacists and us reaching leadership levels, which is exactly what my colleagues today are going to be talking about. So without further ado, let me introduce them and bring them on screen. Hello. Hi, Harps. Hi, Reena. How are you?
All good, thanks.
Yep, good, thank you.
Great. How's this week been so far?
A busy week.
Busy indeed. So I want you guys to introduce yourselves. Tell everyone watching who you are. So Reena, if we can start with you.
So my name is Reena. I am a pharmacist like you guys, qualified a long, long time ago. Do I need to tell my age? Maybe. And I have had lots of different careers, I guess. For the first 5 years of my career, I started as a hospital pharmacist. And then from 2003 onwards, I've been running my own pharmacy, which is a family business that I inherited. So through and through, I'm a community independent pharmacy contractor. But while I've kind of been practicing in the pharmacy, obviously, I've done lots of different bits and pieces, and like you, very, very passionate about doing jobs that fulfill you and roles that kind of fill your cup, and also BAME women, and kind of, you know, being a real cheerleader to all the BAME women out there and the BAME pharmacists out there as well.
Yeah, and Harps. I always call Harps, but Harpreet.
It's fine, you can call me Harps. So, you know, Komal and I worked together for a number of years, sitting right opposite each other, in fact. So that's why we know each other very, very well. So similarly, I actually qualified in hospital, made the move over to community, and then from community went into primary care. And whilst I was working in primary care, I actually started working in software development and working in sort of digital healthcare, which is why that passion for digi healthcare came from. And then I went from there into national policy, which is where I worked with Komal. And then from there, I went to work for the NPA as their digital program director. And I left the NPA a year ago because I went full-time in my own business, which is the Mental Wealth Academy. And I effectively help people to work on their self-leadership skills so that they, don't succumb to mental ill health, burnout, stress, the very things that obviously are huge issues for our profession at the moment. And I do that because I experienced that myself 5 years ago. And so I use my own experiences and the fact that I'm now a certified professional coach to work with organisations and individuals one-to-one to try and deal with the mental health crisis that's facing our profession.
Yeah, I mean, we've all three of us have got PSNC in common, right?
And NPA. PSNC and NPA, all three of us.
Yeah, and NPA in common. So
that's interesting.
Reena, you're the first Asian female pharmacist to sit on both NPA board and the PSNC committee?
Do you know, I should probably feel proud of that fact, but I actually feel really sad about it. I can't believe that it's 2021. And, you know, I'm one to join BAME Women, to join an organisation that is so represented by BAME women throughout the profession in terms of percentages of the women and the BAME percentages. It's really, really upsetting, isn't it? And it's kind of become a bit of my personal mission to kind of find the women that are out there that are community pharmacists in particular and say, why aren't you doing these things? What's stopping you? And it's really interesting when you have those conversations with women to find out what it is that stops them. And I think we'll probably discuss those throughout the next few hour at least, I'm sure.
Yeah, no, absolutely, Reena. I think, you know, you saying that you feel like it was like, you know, why has it taken so long for us to get there, right? And one of the things that really hit me when I did that post a couple of weeks ago on my LinkedIn was the figures. I don't think I personally had actually looked at the figures for a long time. And for those of you guys watching, if you don't know, so 60% of all pharmacists are women, for starters, and 43% of those are from BAME backgrounds. And so when you put those numbers together, we're looking at 25% of BAME women pharmacists. But when you look at leadership, that's not reflected. A quarter of leadership does not comprise of BAME female pharmacists. And I think that really hit me when I looked at those figures, and I thought to myself, why is it that, you know, in 2021 we still haven't got to the levels that are reflective of the makeup, you know, of our profession, right? And I know Harpreet and I have talked about this in the past, and I know Reena's, you know, obviously very, very passionate about it. And we feel like you have championed us because, you know, most certainly in the community pharmacy realm, you know, you've come in and you're the first woman to pave that path for us, you know?
Well, I guess that's a bit of my ambition, to pave a path, but also just to bring people with me. I don't want to be the only woman when I look around that table. And I don't want to be the only BAME woman when I look around that table. And sometimes I look around the tables and I think, why aren't there people who look like me and think like me and act like me? And it feels very lonely. And so I can understand why women would maybe be a bit frightened to even take that first step. But I'm still alive. I haven't been eaten. You know, you can sit on boards, and I think there's a lot of things that you guys can definitely help with in terms of the coaching, the self-leadership, all of those things that, to be honest, I've taught myself. But if I'd met you guys years ago, I so would have taken your help, because I've had to learn these things for myself and kind of push myself to those positions. And obviously I have had mentoring as well, which I'll talk about as well. It's very interesting, isn't it, when you start thinking about the path and why people aren't treading it.
Yeah, absolutely. What are your thoughts on that, Harps?
Oh, massively. You know, and you add to that as well, Kamal, that I think the RPS did their last survey that they did. I don't think they did one last year. I think it was 2019. That not only is there was a pay difference between men and women of 6%, but for BAME women it was 16%. So not only are we not fulfilling the leadership roles, there's a massive discrepancy in pay as well. And you know, we're doing the same job. We're doing the same job as our male counterparts, and we should be absolutely recompensed for that, and we're not. You know, I'm going to say something contentious, but it'll probably get us both, all three of us, talking. But I'm going to say something contentious, and I said, as a woman, I feel sometimes that I have to work twice as hard as my male counterparts to get half the recognition. As a BAME woman, it's even worse. I think all three of us, having worked in senior leadership positions, can say that we have to work harder to get even like a fraction of the recognition that somebody who sadly is a male, you know, and we hear it a lot with boards within pharmacy and the execs and top execs within pharmacy, that they're pale, male and stale. And that was a phrase that was coined, and I can't remember who said it. It was at a conference, and you're nodding because I know you've heard it, that pharmacy is pale, male and stale. And it is, that sadly is the case. And actually young female pharmacists of BAME origin really are not in the upper echelons of management in any part of the sector. And when we're so representative of the sector, to be so underrepresented at those levels, of course we don't have as many then role models for the younger people to sort of look up to, like Reena, to say, oh, if Reena can do it, then that means I can do it. There's a pathway for me as well. But I'm quietly reassured and confident that Reena, by paving that way, just as we now have the first woman of color that's sitting as a vice president of the United States, and we'll hopefully see more of that we'll see the same here, that you've kind of been that shining example for everybody to say, listen, if I can do it and I can walk into a room with big bad boys and hold my own. And I think you remember the first day you walked into the NPA boardroom and I was just like, oh, it's such a breath of fresh air to have a different perspective. And that's not disparaging our male colleagues at all. It's just a different perspective. I think women, we see things differently. You just need to look at the female leaders and how they've handled the COVID crisis across the world to see that we think differently. And that's what you need for an organization to thrive. You need that different, fresh perspective that, is sadly missing at the moment.
You make me laugh, actually, because that breath of fresh air comment, lots of people said that to me, and I thought about changing my name to Febreze. Because I thought everyone keeps telling me I'm going to be a breath of fresh air or like a fresh mint or something. It was so funny, the amount of people that said that to me.
One of the things when I was preparing for today's live, one of the things that I kept coming back to was, and again, I posted about this on my LinkedIn as well recently, was the Mars rover landing. Right? Perseverance. And I was watching it live. And of course, you're looking at the control room and you're seeing, because you can't see the rover, right? You can only see the all of these amazing engineers and technicians and just incredibly bright people in this room watching the rover landing. And I looked at this space thinking, wow, like there's an Indian woman there and there's like, a Spanish guy and it was like the diversity in that room for me was like, that's like the ultimate place that I want every organization and every government and every, it to be representative in that way. And it was the amazing thing about it was the fact that the diversity that came from that room was actually, you could see the camaraderie amongst them. You could see that camaraderie coming across the screen. We're watching it on the telly, but you can see that camaraderie coming across from all of them. And I think that's what diversity brings, right? It's a strength. It's a strength that we get from having the diverse opinions around the table. And for too long, I think we've seen, consciously or unconsciously, we've seen them as negative, or we may not have even been aware that those diverse opinions need to be in the room, right?
Yeah, no, I quite agree. And it is, it is great to see that, and quite rightly. And you know what, when you were talking about it, I was reminded of the film Hidden Figures, which I know Reena and I talked about some time ago when you'd watched it. And she said, I watched this film recently and it was great. It was all about NASA in I think it was the 60s, 50s, 60s, and how some of the women were treated, even though they were the smartest people, in the fields that they were in, but just because they were Black, they were treated, as second-class citizens, effectively, different toilets, different coffee, all that kind of thing. Are we that far removed from that? I don't know. I'd love for us to be in a position where, just as they were, they found themselves in their positions because they were the best person for the job. That's where we should be in pharmacy. It shouldn't be about the person that sticks their necks out the most, or sort of brags about their about their capability or what they've been able to do, or sort of it's who you know. It should be about who actually is the person that is best for the job? Who best represents our pharmacy workforce at the moment? Is it really the people who are in these senior positions, or is it people more like us, who are more representative of the pharmacists on the ground and need that voice? That's the thing that I worry about, is that they don't have a voice in the senior management because we just don't have these people there. And so, yeah, I would like to see more people attaining those types of positions, not because of who they know, not because of wheels they've greased. And we all know how this world sadly works. It should be about the best person for the job and the people who are skilled and are good at representing the needs of the rest of the workforce.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, I put Yasmin's point up because I think she's raised a really important point, that she's saying, from my perspective, I was always put off going into any position of leadership due to the potential bureaucracy faced as a woman and BAME, unfortunately. And I think, for a really long time, and I say this from my own personal experience, I stayed in the background. Like, I was quite happy to just not say anything, not raise my voice, not, speak what I wanted to speak. And I think we need to work towards raising our own voices, right? Next week's event, the NHS, celebrations, we are talking about everyday courage, right? The whole theme of that event is about everyday courage. And it's that question of how do we encourage that everyday courage in each one of us to feel like we've got the backing of everyone else behind us for us to be able to say, yeah, you know what, this isn't right. I don't feel happy about this. Or do you know what? Not even from that perspective. I think things should be this way. What do you think? I think that we should have more diverse people sitting around the table. What do you think? Ask the question, have the confidence to ask that question. I don't know what you guys think about that.
I think that's probably one of the reasons why I kind of chose to decide to do a session at the NHS women's event, because I look at my career and I actually think, when I worked in hospital, when I worked in primary care, when I've worked in academia, there's been a lot better diversity in terms of pharmacists, whereas community pharmacy in particular, in the one sector that I spend most of my life in, BAME women are very invisible. And that's so wrong, isn't it? Because great independent female contractors out there, so many great pharmacists working for some of the big chains, for example, high up in the senior management as well, some of them, but we're just not visible. And I sometimes think, is it my fault? Is it my fault that I'm not visible? Because I'm BAME, is there something that's kind of inherently in us to not be loud and proud? Is there something that comes from our parents always having to conform into a new society that we kind of want to fit in as opposed to stand out? It's interesting, if you were to psychoanalyze it all, there'd probably be some sort of backstory to why we act the way we do. And I think for me, when I kind of joined these boards and committees, I didn't do it because I want to be the BAME woman who's a poster girl. That wasn't my ultimate aim. My ultimate aim is to be a voice that's representative of community pharmacy, and I think that's probably what's helped me the most and that's probably what's grounded me, to be that authentic voice. So I think some people get frightened that I won't know what to say, I won't know what to do, but actually if you stay true to the authenticity of why you put positions in the first place, because you want to a better outcome for community pharmacy, you end up becoming a voice that's trusted, respected, and people think, oh, wow, that's an Asian woman who can talk like that and say things like that. And actually, I'm not the only one. I keep saying that to everybody. I'm not the only Reena Barai. Trust me, there's millions out there. I just need to find them. And that's why I wanted this event, because I think there's lots out there, loads of people out there that maybe will just get a bit encouraged by listening to our stories, talking very openly about our struggles and the sort of things that kind of affect us and the sort of things that we feel we want, basically, and we want people to come with us on that journey.
Yeah, absolutely. Sunil, bless you. He's mentioned that he's had the pleasure and honor of continue working with all three of us, and he's got a lot of respect for us. And I think that's a really important point to kind of raise as well, in terms of, we can't get to where, or we couldn't have got to where we wanted to get to without men either, right? Without men championing us, supporting us, showing us that, giving us that hand, right? And saying, you know what, I want you in the room. I want you to talk about, your voice is just as important. But I want to touch on what you said, Reena, about being really clear on why you're in the room. Once you're clear on why you're in the room, and that you're doing it for the greater good, and you've got that at the heart of everything, there's absolutely no reason why you can't command that respect and have that courage to speak up and have your voice heard, right?
I think that's definitely what keeps me going. And, those first few meetings, I remember thinking, oh, I don't know what to say. Can I say that? Can I really be as honest as I really want to be? And I think differently because I'm a woman, especially at the MPA board where there's some great male colleagues that I have. But I listen to what they say when we're discussing a point, and then I'll raise something that's totally different. And I think, gosh, that's really interesting, isn't it? Why is that? Because I'm a woman, or is that because I think differently? I don't know. Sometimes I really don't know, but it's absolutely fascinating. And you need that empathy, don't you? That I think women naturally bring, and that kind of a different level of emotional intelligence, possibly, that women bring to a conversation as well. I think it's so important to have that. Otherwise, it's a really sad world, isn't it? If we all think the same and we have that group think, that's not what we should be doing. We should be and feel comfortable to challenge as well, and comfortable to speak out. And that sometimes women, we are a little bit frightened, aren't we? Because we don't want to be labelled as the bossy one, or the loud mouth, or the one who always butts in, or the one who always got something to say. So it's getting to that.
Yeah, absolutely. Harps, I want you to talk about this as well. Tell us about what you think.
Yeah, I was just going to come in off the back of what it's the coach in me. Sorry, I can't help it. Common will be the same. When you said the question of what is it about women of a BAME origin that stops them from going for the leadership type positions? What is it? Because clearly the three of us didn't have that, because we've all aspired and become leaders in our own right. So we've not had that to the same degree, but I was just sitting thinking about it whilst you were talking, and I thought, well, what is it? And I think there are some cultural things there, Reena. I think that certainly when I was growing up, I was always taught that little girls should be seen and not heard. I wasn't allowed to express who I was confidently, openly. It was just, shh, be quiet, and so I wasn't encouraged in that way. Now, my parents, were fantastic, and they encouraged me to, educate myself, become independent, everything else. And they really supported me in that. But just in terms of voicing how I felt about things, I wasn't really taught that. I wasn't really allowed to do that. And then the other thing is that I was always taught that we shouldn't brag. We shouldn't boast. We shouldn't be showy. There's lots of people in our community and beyond that are really showy. And so being showy was seen as a really negative thing. So my mum and dad were always like, we shouldn't boast about the things that we have. You need to keep that quiet. And so you carry that with you, because then you go into work and you think, well, actually, I've achieved quite a lot, but I don't feel like I should say anything, because then it sounds like I'm bragging. So then you just don't say anything, and you won't worry all the time about what other people will think, which brings me to another point, which I think is a cultural thing about, what will others think of me? What will others think of this? What will others think of that? And so there's this constant worry, I think, about how we're being perceived, what people are thinking of us. And I think it can sometimes affect our confidence in that way. And certainly when I was on the panel at the last face-to-face pharmacy show, I think it was for the PDA, and we were talking about this very issue. What is it about BAME women that, means that they're not going for these types of leadership roles? How can we improve that diversity? And I talked about the lack of confidence there, and and it's only intensified because since then I've now started working with so many more women in pharmacy, and there is absolutely one trait that I see in all of them, and it's the lack of confidence. It's that constant need for reassurance. They look to other people to give them the reassurance because it's not within themselves. So because they're always looking outwards for that reassurance, they just have this huge hole where they should be confident for themselves. They just don't have it. It's like, well, I can't do that. Little old me, that's not possible. And this isn't just BAME women. This is all women. all women, and there's something wider around that. Why is it that we all struggle with this confidence, and we struggle with comparing ourselves to other people who we think have got it put all together? Oh, you know what? She's got it all together. Look how much she achieves. People look at you, Reena, and they'll be like, look at how much she does. She owns her own business. She sits on 2 boards. She's a PCN lead. She does, this, that, and the other. How does she do it all? And she's a mum. She's got 2 kids, homeschooling and all of that. How is she doing it? She's a superwoman. And then they look at themselves and this is the problem. It's all very well looking at somebody externally and going, they're amazing. But it's when we turn it on ourselves and we use it to sort of a stick to beat ourselves with, well, I can't do that. I'm clearly not as good. So, if I can't do it, and I can't manage all the things that she manages, so I'm just not going to bother. And I'll just stay hidden, like what Kamal said. I'll just stay hidden. And I know what I'm doing here, and I'm comfortable, and everyone knows me, and I've been doing this job for years, and I'll just carry on doing what I'm doing, and it's comfortable and everything else. And so we don't step out of our comfort zones and do these things, because it goes against everything we've ever been taught.
And that was interesting, because I've seen a lot of posts recently, glamorize overworking. And so sometimes I think twice before I post things on social media. But one of the reasons I do it is because you can do a lot, you can achieve a lot in life. And I do manage all of these things somehow, and I'm smiling and I'm okay. And it is possible. And it's actually really fulfilling and really enjoyable to be, working towards the top of your game, both in your own business, making sure you're providing a good service in your pharmacy, on boards, on committees, having a say, being listened to, being asked for your opinion. It's actually so rewarding. It really, really is. And it's just this lovely cycle of fulfillment. I think that's how you started the conversation, didn't you, Kamal? And you were trying to encourage people to, have these roles in their lives where they feel fulfilled. And for some reason, this fills my cup. I really do enjoy what I'm doing, and then I want to talk about it. And so one of the reasons I think, women shouldn't think, oh, I can't do that. I think we should think, I can do that. And how do I do that? And let me have a chat with that woman. How does she do that? And by all means, get in touch with me. Ask me how I do things. And trust me, I'm not perfect. Things go very wrong many times. But I have, like I said, I wish I'd met you guys years ago, because you would have helped me get to the path I've got to. But I've had to learn life hacks, and coach myself, and teach myself self-awareness, and teach myself all of these different things to kind of allow myself to be able to do a bit of everything, which I actually really, really enjoy doing.
Yeah, I think what you've talked about in terms of fulfillment is so, so true, and I think we kind of have to go on that journey as well. One of the things I feel really passionate about is helping, when I'm helping pharmacists to move out of the places where they're at, where they feel like I need more, I want more, I know I can do more, is really putting themselves in the position of, well, what does that look like for you? And what does that feel like for you? And when you know what that looks like, and when you know what that feels like, everything aligns in that direction. You start to then open up opportunities for yourself. You start to have the courage to go forward and get in touch with Reena and say, Reena, you know what? I would really love to know what you do and how you do it. And I find that a lot of pharmacists that I speak to, they don't even have the confidence to reach out to another pharmacist and speak to them. And if there's one thing that this past year has allowed us to do, it's to connect so much more easily online. I love getting messages from other pharmacists, and I will happily get on the phone with them and speak to them and support them in any way, shape, or form that they need. And that's what I think we need to encourage more of, and, be open to that as well, because I think we've always, Harpreet, you mentioned it as well. We've always felt like we can't approach that person and speak to them about what they do. But you'll be surprised at how many pharmacists would happily, get on the phone to you and speak to you about what they do. And that's one of the things that I think I really want to encourage through this cross-pollination, right, of like ideas and thoughts and, jobs. Really, you can make pharmacy what you want it to be. it's about exploring and being okay with that exploration. You know, when I think about my own career, did I think I was going to end up doing what I'm doing now? Hell no. Was it even a thing? No, it wasn't, you know, but you know, you go along that journey and you work out what you like and what you don't like. And going back to what you were saying, Harps, about comparing yourself to other people, I always say just compare yourself to yourself, you know, and that in itself, you will see how far you've come and you will see how much you have achieved. And when you continually do that, that's really when you start to be even more and become a better version of yourself, right? And you have that self-confidence because you know what you know, and you know that you can put it out there and people will listen. And that's where you start to then open up opportunities for yourself.
But do you think that's because inherent in us is a desire to grow? And we are quite resilient as well. It's very interesting, isn't it? How some people maybe haven't got that burning ember in them that they want to be more and do more. It's interesting how I do meet women who are just very happy, just, you know, having a job in a pharmacy or running a pharmacy. They, you know, and I ask them, why won't you join your LPC, or have you thought about standing for an MPA board position? And they're like, oh no, I'm just happy doing what I do. So there's something in us, the three of us, that we have that the want and the desire, don't we? And I feel like that's a passion I want to share with people, to say, you know, find it, because it's really lovely when you find that ember and you think, actually, yeah, I could do that. That's really interesting. A big role of ours, I think, probably the three of us, especially next week at the IWD event, to kind of really support those women to find that everyday courage and practice it. How do you keep courageous? How do you stay courageous? Because sometimes you can have dips, can't you, in your confidence, as you said, Harpreet, and dips in your careers, and you start to lose that courage. And it's a constant journey, isn't it?
Yeah. I think, and you know, I wrote something down when you were talking about the fact that you managed to do what you do, and you know, each one of us has 168 hours in a week. And if you ever log what you do in your hours, it's actually a bit of an eye-opener in terms of how much time you spend, particularly on these things, because you don't realize that screen time is quite scary. We don't realize how much time we actually fritter away. So there is something in that actually, it's not necessarily about not having time. Sometimes it's about prioritizing what's important to you. Now, I would say, Reena, you prioritize all the things that you do because it's your absolute passion. You can tell from the way you talk, it's what you absolutely love to do. And coming back to Kamal's point, you feel fulfilled by your work. And so for those women who say, oh, do you know what, I'm just happy being, you know, in this pharmacy and just doing what I'm doing and just cracking on with it. If that is their passion, if that brings them fulfillment, then great, carry on doing that. But if it doesn't, they're the ones that I want to talk to, because if you're sticking with your job or in your role because you're scared to take that leap, which is generally what I'm hearing from the pharmacists I work with, is I don't know what else I would do. I'm too niche. I wouldn't find a job like this anywhere else, and I can't possibly go for that role because I don't have all the skill set. And there's been numerous studies done on the fact that if there is a position and you have a man and a woman going for that position, and both of them have about half of the skills that they need for this position, the man will go for that position and usually overinflate his skills, whereas the woman will take one look at it and go, yeah, do you know what, I'm not going to go for that because I've only got half the skills. I'm not going to get that job. And so they just don't apply. And Sheryl Sandberg, the CEO of Facebook, wrote a whole book on leaning in. And she talks about this, the fact that women generally will underplay how good they really are because there's that deep kind of rooted fear, lack of courage, lack of confidence, whereas men are the complete opposite end of the scale and will generally overinflate where they are. But that's why they get the positions, because they can do that. And so it's about helping some of these women who have got that fire in their belly like we had, and really helping them develop, because there is a lack of development in our profession. I see it. This is why I do what I do, and I'm certain it's why Kamal probably does what she does, is because, you know, there is a real lack of leadership development within our profession, and not just leadership, but self-leadership, So you said, Reena, there's something about the three of us and the fact that we've done this, and all three of us have worked on ourselves. All three of us have, invested quite a lot in personal and self-development, because we understand that in order to get to the next level and beyond, we have to do that. We have to understand what makes us us. We have to have that self-awareness. What are our strengths? What are our weaknesses? Let's sweat our strengths rather than focusing on trying to make our weaknesses better, which is a trait of pharmacists, because we have to, we feel we have to be perfect. So we try and make the bad things better rather than actually sweating what we're good at. Look at what we're good at and go for it, rather than worrying about the things that we're not so good at. And these are the keys, I think, in order to sort of help some of those pharmacists at that level to try and step up into these, sort of leadership positions. It's working on yourself, doing that self-development. And I'm probably right in saying that all three of us haven't necessarily had our development through work. We've done it ourselves, self-funded, in our own times. We found things that we want to do. We've done extra qualifications, and that's what's got us to do now what we all love to do in our individual respective roles, right? We're all passionate about what we do. We're all really fulfilled. And that's what I would say to anyone watching this, whether they're from BAME background or not. If you are a woman that's watching this and you are not happy with where you are or your circumstances, don't stick it out. I know we're risk averse as pharmacists, but don't stick it out. Step up, lean into these positions. There's loads of them around. There are. But don't hold yourself back because of, oh, what about this or what about that? If you don't go for it, you'll never know. Go for it.
Yeah.
And
absolutely.
I think also one of the things that probably stopped me is that imposter syndrome, which I've talked about before, I think on a post with you, Komal.
Yeah.
I didn't even realize I had it. It's really interesting. And I guess I never saw myself as this, like you just said earlier, Cornwall, like I never imagined I'd be doing what I'm doing now. I'm the same. I never would have thought, I used to go to these conferences and see these people up on the stage and think, oh, they're clever, they're good, they can speak well, they know what they're talking about. Didn't ever think, oh, I want that to be me. Really know why I've ended up doing what I'm doing, to be honest. But and I think having those good role models really helps with that imposter syndrome, because you see people that look like you and think like you and think, oh, okay, I think I could do that as well. How does she do that? But also, like you said, Harpreet, as well, finding these women that want that change. So these women that have got the imposter syndrome that really don't know how to break out from their current molds. And I think one of the things I was going to say as my introduction in the Everyday Courage event is, sometimes you feel that you feel like you need courage, or you feel like you need to be brave, and you need to learn all these new skills to get to that role. But sometimes all of these things are already in us. As pharmacists, we are great at multitasking and lots of transferable skills that we pick up from just running a pharmacy, if any of you've ever worked in a community pharmacy or wherever. And actually so many of those skills are upscalable. So sometimes at the MPA, for example, we're talking about big money and a big idea, but I bring that down to, like, if this was my little pharmacy and I had to do this and spend this much money, what would my thoughts be, etc. And you just scale it up. You don't always need like a PhD or a master's or all these things that we feel that will give us this fake coat of resilience and fake coat of courage, because actually a lot of us have got it in us already.
Yeah, something that came to mind when you were saying that is something that I've been thinking about quite a lot recently, and it's it's this point of, when you become a parent before you're ready to become a parent, right? When you take on a role, you assume that the responsibility of that role before you feel confident at that role, right? And I feel that that's the bit we often miss out on, because we're always thinking about the things that we're not. But actually, if you were first day on the job and somebody asked you, what's your role? You're going to tell them, I'm head of support services, right? You may not feel ready to be in that role, but you've assumed the responsibility of it. And the power of that is that you begin to think like that person who is the head of support services, right? And it's this, we have to apply that same principle to every aspect of our lives, right? We've got to apply the same principle of, I am a parent before I'm a parent, before I feel like I'm an actual parent. And, you know, we've got to start thinking from that perspective, that even for a woman watching this, or, you know, man watching this, thinking, you know what, I really want to do that role. Well, think about who you would be if you were to do that role. And when you think about that, you're assuming the responsibility of that role. You are taking on the identity of that role, and you step up to it, you know. And it's just something that I was really thinking about, because I was thinking, you know, we all of us in our lives at some state, you know, when we've all taken on new jobs, and we've had to assume the responsibility of that role before we feel ready. And it's, you know, it's the mindset that comes first. It's the shift in the mindset that comes first before you actually are doing that job.
Never thought about it, but you're absolutely right. But then if you think about how nervous we felt as new mums, it's as nervous as we feel, you know, in the roles we're doing right now. We're always feeling like, you know, am I doing the right thing? Is there a better way to do this? I don't care. You know, there's always questions that crop up in our crazy minds, aren't there, when we're doing all of these sort of things. But I guess, again, it's the sort of, like I said earlier on, it's about having that authenticity. So when you become a parent, you want to be the best parent there is. When you become a pharmacist, you want to be the best pharmacist, you know, and just kind of always having that as your end goal, and trying your best to grow and to you know, evolve to that better version of yourself, which is what I always say as well. That's exactly what I keep trying to do. You know, I'm not there. I want to be somewhere, but even when I'm there, I'll probably want to be somewhere else. So I just think it's constantly evolving, and it's a really lovely cycle, isn't it? And I've loved watching people in my career as well do that. And I think one of the reasons I think we all struggled to find just a few women to have a panel session with, didn't we, at this IWD event? Because when we were thinking about all the wonderful BAME women out there, there's loads, you know, absolutely loads, so many. And actually Helen Bevan, who's one of the coordinators of this, has been a real kind of idol of mine. And, you know, she coined the word change agent many years ago. And ever since I read that, I thought, I want to be the person who just goes in and changes things and, you know, shakes things up a little bit. And so she's really inspired me a lot along the way. And I feel, you know, it's good that we're having these conversations. It's good that we're being open. And I hope that people feel confident they could be open back with us. So I hope people will join our session and ask us lots of questions and stay in touch with us on social media and all the different connections, because I think all three of us feel like this is going to be the start of a conversation, isn't it, really? Because we're kind of we're unlocking something, aren't we? And hopefully we want to kind of move on and do more and kind of change and grow. So I think it's a really great thing to start.
Yeah, absolutely. And you've segued really nicely into what our, you know, what our session is going to be about, Reena, because, you know, the whole session is about how BAME female pharmacists find and develop and, you know, and practice that everyday courage in order to become, you know, the future leaders within the NHS. That's really what we want to, you know, inspire women with, right? So tell us about, because I know Reena, you very, very carefully, not carefully because there's just too many women to pick from, but you picked the women that you know, have really kindly come on to be panelists on our session. So tell everyone about who they are.
So I think they're people that have inspired me and people who I've worked with, and I'm watching them grow. So Sadina, for example, was, I can be honest, the first Black pharmacist in a session that I'd worked with. And, you know, I used to look at her and think, gosh, you rock. You know, a woman who was proud of her heritage, really, really proud of who she is, and could hold an audience in a room full of GPs when I first sort of joined primary care. And I was just in awe of this woman. And I just thought, gosh, how is she doing that? You know, it's really impressive to see a BAME woman doing that. She was my first kind of role model, if I look back and think, gosh, you know, and you do have those sort of moments, think, I want to be like her. Yeah. I want to walk into a room and have everyone listening to me and actually, you know, being able to really constructive way with people who were challenging. You know, the GPs back in the day of PCTs and were really challenging because practice pharmacists were new, and, you know, these pharmacists, they weren't really appreciated. And it was really interesting to watch her grow. So that's why I think I chose Sadina, because I know for me she was a very early role model. And Tassay I worked with as a hospital pharmacist. So when I worked back at King's College Hospital. And what I've loved about Tassay, at the time, Here and I were just normal pharmacists, just trying to figure out our careers. But I've watched her grow over the years and strength to talk about Black pharmacists. And she is headed up lots of initiatives to support the BAME network. And I love women like that who, you know, want to support other women, especially from those sort of backgrounds. And so for me, I think she'll be a really interesting person to hear from, because I think she gets the whole girl power thing, which I love. And so I think she'll be really, really great. And then Helen, we all know, you know, she has, she's just the most lovely leader. You know, she just needs to say hello and we'll all follow you. You're amazing. And she is so authentic, so authentic. And I think that's one of the qualities I admire the most in a leader. And that's probably why I kind of chose her. And also she's one of the only pharmacists in a new role that's evolving in the NHS as a clinical director of a PCN, which is mainly GP based. Most of these clinical directors across the country are GPs. So for her to be one of the first pharmacists and then to be part of the NHS Confed as well, that she is, I just think, you know, these are the, and she's breaking a mold there that people would have assumed it has to be a GP, and she's broken a mold. So for me, I just thought I love women like her who break molds. And so that's why I came to the three of them, and obviously chose you two to be my co-host with me, because as BAME women who I admire, and as I've said, I wish I'd met you years ago, because if I you know had to self-teach myself all the things that you're helping people with, and actually the more people that get in touch with you two to support them to have that self-leadership and grow and find the career that gives them the better people will be equipped. So we see these new faces quicker. I don't want to wait 20 years to see, you know, the faces I'm meeting now in a leadership position. I want to see them next year. Damn it, I want to see them this year. You know, I don't want to wait decades. I want it to happen now.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I'm so grateful, Reena, that you've invited. I certainly invited me to, you know, to co-host with you, because it's a topic that I do feel really, really passionate about. I know Harpreet does as well. And, you know, we feel really excited about being able to be involved in this event and, you know, be able to really, like you said, it's like the start. It feels like it's the start of something, you know, it's the start of us supporting each other. You know, and taking those women along, you know, and helping them to reach their goals and their ambitions in their careers and their lives. And we all love Yusuf.
Thank you, Yusuf. That's very
Thank you so much, Yusuf. You know, I know Yusuf himself has had, you know, he is a huge advocate of coaches as well. You know, he's had coaches himself. And, you know, and I do feel that, you know, it's so important that we do spend that time on working on ourselves, because only then can we really realize our true potential. And this, I feel, is something that is so missing in our profession, you know, and the more people that do it, the better, I feel, you know, because we can absolutely continue to raise our profession and raise everyone along with us. You know, going back to what I was saying earlier about diversity, is, you know, we're not talking about this in a silo. We're talking about this because we want the diversity around the table, right? We want those diverse opinions up there, you know, changing pharmacy, changing the narrative around pharmacy, which is a whole nother topic that we can we can
have another hour on that. Come on.
you know, completely changing the narrative, you know, about pharmacy. But, you know, I really hope that you guys, whoever's listening to this today, I really hope that you can join us on Monday for the NHS International Women's Day celebrations, because honestly, the lineup, you need to see what is on there. I mean, the events are so incredible. There are some really, really amazing sessions that are happening. And I know it's come together quite quickly, but it's, you know, the sessions on there are just incredible. They span the entire healthcare spectra. And, you know, anyone watching this who hasn't signed up, sign up because, you know, it is going to be such an amazing event. And our session is at 1:45 to 2:30 on Monday. So if you can join us, please do. We would love to see you there. Please come and ask your questions. You know, we want to start that conversation. So, you know, hear from Tassé and Sadina and Helen, and let's get the conversation started about BAME women pharmacists in leadership positions. Thank you guys so much. Before we go, I know Yusuf's just put on a comment about we don't invest enough in ourselves. Introspection, improvement, and learning will help one to reach further professionally. Couldn't agree with you more, Yusuf. Couldn't agree with you more. So excited that you're going to be able to join us as well on Monday. So thank you guys so much. And thank you to everyone who's listened in this evening as well. We hope you guys can join us. And we really look forward to seeing you at the International Women's Day event on Monday. The three of us are so excited about this. For those of you guys who are watching, who watch the Happy Healthcare Professionals live show every week, join me again next week, because I have got an amazing pharmacist from the US who's going to be joining me. She is actually a specialist in cannabis, believe it or not. So she's going to be joining me next week, and we're going to be having a conversation about holistic health and pharmacy. So do join me then. And all that's left to say is good night.